All right, so let's get this out of the way right now. This movie doesn't really warrant a trip to the theater. Matter of fact, it probably would play better on TV. It's full of character and situational tropes that we've seen many times before, particularly ones that we've even seen twice before in the previous Barbershop films. So once again, Calvin is confronted with whether or not to close the barbershop. That's the first thing. Then there's the slutty homewrecker who flirts with a married man. There's the idiot who speaks only to be made fun of. The non-black character who steps on eggshells so as not to say anything racially insensitive. The old dude who just says crazy shit.
It's hopping in one fleek last time.
Did she just say fleek? There's a whole dictionary full of words. There's a library down the street. You won't see fleek in there nowhere.
He funny, he make me laugh.
The wife who's suspicious of her husband, whether or not he's cheating. And there are discussions that take place that feel more like speeches where barbers just walk away from their stations while their customers wait for them to speechify. For the length of time I've waited to get into a chair sometimes, if my barber even thought about stopping cutting my hair, walking into the middle of the barbershop and preaching, he would not see my money ever again. It's almost like you can see the checkbox as the writers mark off each issue. Black women who have high expectations for men while chasing thugs. Men who want good women, but they chase hoes. Whether or not Obama has been a good black president for black people. The legacy of slavery, that's a big one. Whether or not women want sex as much as men. And do they really desire big penises? You know, the typical stuff. All of this stuff plays out like a typical sitcom. The majority of the characters are one-dimensional. The plotting is very ham-fisted, hits you over the head with a hammer, with minimal nuance, and there's very little middle ground or shades of gray. This is a movie where Ice Cube's character, Calvin, decides to hold a community meeting at the shop the same night, that night that he comes up with the idea, and everybody in the neighborhood shows up on time. Come on now.
I was running on CP time.
Having said all that, there are some gems in this movie that really caught me off guard. The biggest thing that made the film redeemable was the manner in which the film deals with an issue which had to be brought up in a story that's set in the south side of Chicago. And yeah, we're talking about the soaring homicide rate. I thought this was handled very effectively with news footage and a voiceover from Ice Cube. Speaking of which, honestly, Ice Cube really has two expressions throughout the entire film. The NWA scowl and Are We There Yet smile. But he makes it work somehow. He provides a strong father figure, one of the strongest this side of James Evans. He and Jasmine Lewis, who plays his wife, provide the most engaging subplot of the whole film, which involves their attempt to keep their son out of the streets. Cube does a wonderful job specifically in these scenes. But like all the other myriad plots, it's not given its full due, and it's wrapped up in a sitcom fashion as the movie concludes. But man, it really does resonate, kind of like in a pursuit of happiness kind of way. There's another subplot involving a politician. He proposes to build a barricade around the neighborhood in order to cut down on crime. It sounds villainous, but his character is surprisingly more nuanced than that. He says that he's just trying to come up with ideas for what's best for the neighborhood, and the actor Sean Patrick Thomas sells that. This is a character that was in the first Barbershop film. He may have been in the second as well, but I don't remember that film that well. So you have two very strong plots, Ice Cube's family dynamic on the south side and a politician's attempt to build a wall. Both would make for gripping, dramatic films in of themselves. I mean, a politician building a wall? That doesn't sound too familiar.
I will build a great, great wall.
There were standout performances from Eve, Lamorne Morris, who I think is very funny. He plays on the Fox sitcom New Girl, and Utkarsh Ambudkar, who plays a barber of Indian descent. One of the more disappointing performances came from Common, who I thought did good work in Selma, but he was very wooden and stiff here. It's a shame too because his subplot involving his wife was somewhat compelling, if not a little, cliched.
If you threw it up in the air, it would turn into sunshine.
I thought Michael Rainey Jr., who plays Ice Cube's son, did a fantastic job as well. He kind of struck me as a young Lawrence Tate. Even though I haven't seen Chirac, which also deals with the subject of violence in Chicago, I get a feeling that this film handled it a lot better from what I'm hearing about that film. I was going to give this movie only 2.5 reels, but the manner in which the film deals with Chicago violence and Cube's family dynamic, I got to bump it up to 3 reels. And that's the martini. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.